Hey up Woodlanders, welcome to day 3 of the great big green week. Today I just wanted to highlight about green spaces and how we can do our best to look after these. If you're fortunate enough to own or look after a little bit of green space, it could be a tiny patch of garden or a little bit of a wild space. And behind me, this long narrow strip is what we planted as a wildflower strip. It's about 100 metres long and about 5 metres wide. And when we first started looking after the woodland, all it was just a wall of bramble. So we worked really hard and managed to establish a wildflower strip. We're just still waiting for it to establish itself. It's only really been going about 5 or 6 years properly. And there's a lot of grass still in it, but gradually the wildflowers are coming. Of course, not everybody has a little bit of woodland to look after, and we realise how fortunate we are to be able to do that. But if you've got just a tiny little bit of garden space, we've got a small garden at home, and what we do throughout May and June is there's certain areas of our garden that we don't mow at all. There's quite a fashion these days to keep grass topped and mowed as tightly as possible. And there's fors and against with having tightly mown areas of grass because that creates its own little habitat. But we like to have a mix of both at home. So we keep one area where it's quite long grass, let the wildflowers develop and bloom, and then we mow little strips in and around the garden, up to the greenhouse and up to the shed, so that we have nice short areas of grass so we don't get wet socks and wet trousers. Many people don't like the look of long grass in their gardens, thinking it's all been neglected and left to nature and abandoned, but that's exactly what we want. Just maybe for a few months of the year, a place where all the tiny little bugs and creatures can find a place that they can call home. It's these kind of untouched spaces that allow habitat for all sorts of creatures, whether that be caterpillars and bugs and beetles and spiders, and all of that becomes food for something further up the food chain. By having such spaces, even though really tiny, it's just one way that we can stand up for nature. So if you're able to, and you have a tiny little bit of green space that you look after, why not let it go wild for just a couple of months a year to provide some sort of habitat for these little critters. See you on the next one.